Alexis Pickering, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Should I call you Commissioner? No, just Alexis. You're here. Yep. You're here as Alexis Pickering. Mm-hmm. Yep. Fantastic. You and I have gotten connected for a number of reasons, but one thing I want to talk to you about, there was a public lands rally, I believe it was last weekend. Mm-hmm. That's a big thing. And when I moved to this state, I was not aware or understand the balance and the fight that has been going on to preserve public lands, right? And I was here for a year before I heard like the Frank Church wilderness, right? Like I didn't know these things and I didn't understand the balance of federal lands versus state lands versus private lands. Talk to me about this rally because this is trying to start educating people on, hey, look, Idaho's got this cool thing. Yeah. We got this thing that everybody throws in on and we are the lucky beneficiaries of it. And that could go away.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me give you, if you don't mind me, Matt, give you
Please.
Kind of like a historical context too, because I think that helps anchor in what we're seeing right now and why this is a really important topic to talk about.
Can I tell you something really fast?
Yes.
I always get nervous when people are like, well, let me tell you, Matt.
No, I am not the lecturer.
Matt.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. It's okay.
How would you like
It's just, no, 100%. Call me Matt. It just cracks me up because I almost never say like, well, Alexis. Doesn't matter. I've had too much coffee. All right, just give me the background.
Okay,
Go.
I'll give you the background.
Okay.
So basically, when Idaho became a state on July 3rd, 1890, part of that agreement that established us in statehood and joining the union was setting aside 62% of our landmass and putting it in the hands of the national government. And that was part of the equal footing doctrine. So when the 13 original colonies, they had to pay the debt for the Revolutionary War,
sure.
They had to cough up a bunch of money. Idaho didn't have money because we weren't a state yet, but we had land, right? So that was a key part of our Constitution, the agreement that we made back then that created our state. So
essentially it was, hey, look, please allow us in to this thing that you guys fought really hard for because you fought for the creation of the United States.
And it was expensive.
We don't have anything to offer you, but we will offer you this land. Just bring us into the party.
Yes.
Got it.
Exactly. And so then it created a small percentage of state land that the state was going to manage. And that land and it's in our Constitution, it says that the state will manage it for the benefit of Idaho's institutions and schools. So that's why we see
endowment lands,
right? So that's part of that agreement and setting up us for success, essentially. So obviously, we were also one of the last states to become, in the West, to be explored and to be part of the Union. And so that's also why we have such a large chunk of land, because a lot of other states just don't have as much as we do.
These are wild times. Mm-hmm. I've heard this explained a lot of times, never that clearly. So essentially, the public lands was a payout for bringing us into the Union.
Correct.
They gave us state land so we could fund our institutions, so we weren't just, like bankrupt from the start.
For sure.
We started out, I think, with like 3.5 million acres of public lands, and now we're down to like 2.5 or something. Isn't that roughly? Or excuse me, state-owned public lands in the endowment.
State lands. Well, there's a couple different types of state lands, but I think it's about 6 million acres.
Oh, okay,
yes.
Great.
Yep.
Well, then I'm way the heck off.
Well, that's okay. I mean,
that's okay because I get to be the idiot.
We're all
I get
learning.
to be the idiot. There's a broader conversation going on nationally, and you see this playing out in states like Utah and things like that, where people are trying to grab onto portions of their public lands from the federal government. Mm-hmm. And, essentially everybody says, well, the government should just give us those lands back. First off, there's nobody getting like granted just giant swaths of land for free.
And they're not it's not the state's land to begin with.
It just happens to be within the state's border, but
Correct.
It's not the state's land. It never was.
It never was. Right. And so we have 6 million acres of state land in Idaho's borders, and we have 34 million of federal national public lands. So that's the scale and difference of national lands compared to state lands. And then one quick complexity too is the national lands are managed for all users. So think motorized snowmobiles, motorcycles, non-motorized horseback riders like myself, folks that use bikes, right? Hikers, hunters, all of those types versus Idaho Department of Lands. That's really for, energy or grazing. It's very specific, or wildfire mitigation.
Sure.
So, or logging, right? So those are very specific uses that are tied to that constitutional element piece. And so that's why we see some nuance and challenges within folks saying that, well, it's just not, the public lands aren't managed well. Well, they have different purposes, right? It's really challenging to manage it for everyone and for everyone to agree that that's, hunky-dory, right? Like that's great. So versus IDL has a very specific task at hand.
And the multi-use have different tiers of like industry, or not industry, but enterprise,
for
right?
Sure.
Like enterprise value. So for instance, if you have like a hiking trail, that's probably not generating any revenue. But if you have, logging versus grazing versus, whatever, mineral harvesting, like you have revenue that can come out of these different enterprises, and you have to manage it. Like we have to have the recreation stuff, but we also need to get revenue because of endowment, right? Like we're trying to generate revenue for our schools and whatnot through different state pieces. Like these are all hyper complex because the need that the state has from these individual uses is also different. Like I need to make money if I'm loaning out land for a cattle operation to graze on. I need to make money for that.
Yep.
I don't need to make money necessarily from somebody using a trail. Like maybe we have some kind of, fees, but not the same as like, again, the state just has different requirements as well.
Right. And to your point, I'll just give an example that most folks don't really, I feel like most folks don't understand this difference, but the state says that for our Idaho Department of Lands, that they our land board, which the governor, a lot of our state elected sit on, they have to take the highest cost benefit to the taxpayers. So sometimes, our grazing leases are not generating the same revenue that, a wind farm would. So by law, they're having to take that higher benefit, right? That bigger cost benefit to taxpayers. So that can also create some tension naturally, right? And so we see on the national public land space that actually most Idahoans and Americans, right? We have a say in how we'd like to see those managed. That is not the case with state lands. The land board decides that. So we have a role.
And their hands are tied by some of their own rules.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But again, from an Idahoan, like a citizen, tax-paying citizen, you and I, if we found out that there was some better, they're like, hey, this plot of land over here, this plot could be making $10 million a year, but right now it's only making $1.5 million because they gave it to their friend who's running a cattle operation. You and I theoretically would be like, hey, what about the Delta? That's $8.5 million that could be going to, pick your pet project in the state of Idaho. So there is an obligation, but there's also that makes sense as far as, all right, but like if we can't just start giving away money, the Idaho's presumed potential earnings to just, private people.
Totally. So what we're seeing now we're seeing how billionaires and out-of-state interests are honing in on our national public lands because it's a cash cow, right? Like there's resources, there's money to be made by transferring and selling off these lands because, they're not the ones that are recreating or whatever, right? And so that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing this, this trickle effect going on with Utah, for example. So don't know if you've shared that, the governor, Spencer Cox of Utah, they've spent millions and millions of dollars on a PR campaign to shift the public narrative and understanding and wanting to wrangle those the national lands in Utah, and transfer it to the state.
So they're like repatriating it. They're like give it from the federal government back to Utah.
Yeah, they're asking for the federal government to give it up. And that was that they sued the federal government last fall. And our Attorney General, Raul Labrador, signed on to that lawsuit, and which was really scary because that means that our lands could be at stake as well. Luckily, the U.S. Supreme Court dismissed it on January 10th because there's no legal mechanism for this to happen because it was part of the deal when we created our states, right? But that still is concerning because we're seeing legislatures in Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and now even in Idaho where we're trying to usurp that federal management and give it to the state. Because and why that's concerning. I love the idea. I mean, obviously, local control is important, right? Sure. There is a case to be made for that. But I would say we already have that control. we don't with state lands. So we would actually be giving up some of that control.
We don't always have that control.
True.
Like the Lava Ridge project, a little bit of a stick in the eye.
Well, that ended up not coming through.
Yes, but not because of local voices. The local voices always said no. That happened because we had a change in administration and a change in management.
Right.
But so not always the case, but a lot of times they take into account what people say.
But at least we had the mechanism to say something. That does not exist in state lands. Like that's my point, right? They might not always hear you, but at least you can actually use your voice. That will not happen with state lands. So, but putting that aside,
we should get like public comment for like the land board. I'll text Director Miller.
Yeah.
Find out like, hey man, can we
Debbie.
I'll talk to you. Yeah. It's like, hey, Dustin, like how about we get some public comment? Well, this is Matt.
But putting that point aside, our state government can barely afford to maintain the lands that we have, right? So just this last session that they're wrapping up now, they didn't even appropriate the same amount of money that they spent last year in wildfire mitigation for this upcoming wildfire season.
I did speak with Representative Horman about this on, I think it was Friday. And she was saying, look, honestly, we don't even have the bill yet. Like we don't know 100% of what the last fire season cost. So she was just saying, hey, look, she was leery to provide the $60 million requested to pave those bills when she was like, I don't even think it's going to be $60 million. Now, whether or not it is, I have no idea. That's just
that feels a bit silly though, because I mean, regardless, we know that we're going to have an intense fire season. And if somehow we don't, then that can just get reappropriated, right? That just tells me that we're not taking it seriously. And you're not listening to the experts like Dustin Miller, who's saying we need to set aside some funds in the case that this happens, right? But we just this last fire season, which was like the worst that we've had in history, and
pretty wild.
It's pretty bad. I was a wildland firefighter for 2 years, and my dad still does it. And it's kind of tricky to find like the hard numbers, but we're estimating that it's about $450 million on the federal side just for the wildfire costs in Idaho alone. So 50 million, 450 million just in wildfire costs. That does not go and attribute to maintaining those lands outside of fire season, keeping access, campgrounds, all of those things, right, that have huge costs. We would bankrupt the state. But the kicker is Idaho cannot be bankrupt, right, which is a good thing. And so that means that if somehow these lands would come under state control, they would be sold. And
because it would cost too much to maintain. We can't put it on a credit card.
Right.
Gotcha.
So they would be sold, and then we would lose access forever. Like kind of what we've seen with the Wilkes brothers up in the Valley County area, right? Like that's what would happen for 62% of the state.
Representative Fulcher was chatting with me about this, and I know he's a big proponent of, hey, like, let's get this land back into it, or at least he seems positive about it. And he was saying, look, the plan would not be to transfer everything all at once. The plan would be to transfer a small portion of it and get that portion financially viable, and then, rinse and repeat and just keep doing like, okay, we have these minerals, we have this timber, we have all of these things, but go one bit at a time instead of dumping everything on, and allow a long enough time frame and lead up to financial viability.
That's just a super slippery slope. I mean, we've just seen what's happened with the Texas billionaire brothers, like literally putting armed guards on public roads, accessing those public lands behind their property. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about losing access to historical hunting grounds where we fish, all of those things. And I think this idea that, let's just make this fun, it's already financially viable. Like the work and the investments that come out of our federal lands in Idaho, it's the second largest economic driver in the state, just behind agriculture. So it is a huge economic benefit to us, and obviously for our quality of life, right? Not to mention how in rural communities across the state, like where I come from in Kuski, if you're not contracting with the Forest Service as a small business owner or working for the Forest Service or whoever, that would completely decimate all of these communities throughout Idaho.
One thing that I actually haven't thought about in all these conversations that you're bringing up really well is, look, in our current state, we have financial viability in our current state of existence, right?
Yep.
Like the federal lands get paid for, the state lands get paid for. We are financially viable. So the whole conversation of resolving the problem with financial viability. It's like, yeah, but we'd be making that problem. Now, if we have a problem with the management, that's a different thing. If we have a problem with better, partnerships or better communication or better, good neighbor authority, whatever it might be, like there could be other things that we do that don't make a financial problem, right? Like we don't have that burden. So we should at least conceptualize, do we actually want to make a long-term problem that we then have to solve constantly? Right. And we're always at the risk of like, solve it this year again. You have to hit the target 100% of the time. That's it. You have to be on like bullseye every single year, or things get sold off. So even if it's not in the first 10 years or 20 years or 40 years, 100 years down the road, you might have like a great decrease in actual open lands.
Mm-hmm. I'm just like,
does that not make sense? Which is essentially if we make this problem, like right now, there's no.
And you mean by making this problem like transferring?
Yeah. So we have our federal lands.
Yep.
Okay. They're paid for.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem paying for them today, in 10 years, in 100 years. I never worry about that. Mm-hmm. Okay. If those became Idaho lands, I would have that problem every year.
Yes.
Forever.
Yep.
Meaning I have to find a way to make these financially viable and resolve this problem, or else they will start to be sold off.
Right.
And once they're sold off, we can never get them away. So that's what I was saying. Look, in a long enough time frame, you can see that problem weighing heavily. And then, in economic downturns or like really crazy fires. What if you have a crazy fire season in an economic downturn? Then it's like cut off like 500,000, like just sell 500,000 of it. And it's like that happens enough times, and all of a sudden we have a significant drop.
Yep. And I mean, and we've already seen that come to pass with state lands. So since our founding, the state has sold off a third to 40% of our state lands. So it's already happening, right? And so that's what we're saying is, public lands are one of the things that keep and make Idaho great. This is a non-negotiable across the state. We know that public lands are wildly popular across political spectrums, geographical areas, creed, what have you, right? So this rally was really about bringing folks together to say, not another acre. This is, if you're messing with us, you mess with the bull, you're going to get the horns, really, right? Talk about grazing, which again, grazing rights would be gone. Like all of these things that we think are so, and we look at as very Idaho fundamentals would be gone forever, right? So it went really well. We had, up to 2,000 folks come in from all over the state, from Coeur d'Alene to Driggs. We had 5 horses and 2 mules. 2 of them were my horses,
Why the mules?
Mules are cool. Are you kidding?
Why? Why not like alpaca
they just
or something?
They just came.
Or llamas. Like I'd be down with a llama, like a therapy llama. Not so much.
I don't know anybody with llamas. So,
yeah.
But
I'm hoping one day to get a Highland cow. This is my idea.
My grandfather had Highland cows.
Okay, listen to me. This is my plan. All right. I want to get like a little gentleman's ranch. This is my plan. Don't anybody steal this plan. And
what color are the Highland cows?
Oh, blonde.
Oh, you want blonde? See, my
blondie.
grandma had the red ones, the apricots. They're really pretty.
It's
They're
totally
really pretty.
fine. I don't care. Whatever you want. Just get me one.
No.
This is my plan. It's your plan.
It's your plan.
This is my plan. I'm going to make I make content all day long, right? Mm-hmm. But it's all like talking head content, podcasts, clips like this. But it's called The Ranch. Like my show is called The Ranch. And everyone's like, oh, I'm like, no, I'm just an idiot with a mic. Like you don't understand.
Be all hat, no cowboy.
Right. So this is my plan. This is going to be Matt's content. Like once a week, I'm going to do a video that starts out. No, listen, this is going to be great. It starts out with like a big hair rock band from the 80s or like a shot of like runway models. And it's going to be like 3-4 seconds of that. And then it's going to cut to me and Bella, my Highland gal, where I'm doing her hair the exact same way, like trying to tease it up like the 80s or like curlers. And it's like once a week, it's going to be like me and Bella having like hair time. This is my plan. That's it.
Dude, I am not going to get in the way of your vision.
Don't get in the way of it.
And
don't steal it. You got a history with Highlands. I don't want you to steal my idea.
I got horses. That's enough for me. Yeah.
Does anybody do like the horse's hair? You ever put like braids in the horse's hair?
Yes, but that's mostly to just keep them from, getting knots and all sorts of stuff. It's mostly utilitarian, right? Not necessarily cosmetic.
I was telling somebody my dream the other day, and they're like, "Do you even know how to braid, bro?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know how to." Like, this is not that complex.
Oh,
like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Like, just like that. Make that noise too. What if Bella had like big old cornrows? Like, that'd be wild times.
That would take a very long time.
I know. This is going to be
Highlander cows have a lot of hair.
They have. Well, you don't have to do the whole thing, just the head area.
Oh, so you just want? Okay, you're not.
I'm not braiding the whole cow.
Back. Okay.
No, it's going to be like she's going to be like my big head rock band chick.
Gotcha. I see it. Like with them.
Yeah, like I'll play Kiss in the background. It's like I'll dye her black for the day, like her hair black. It'll be great because Kiss, they had dark hair, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, this is my plan. That's it. Anyway, listen, thank you for coming. I know you're very short on time today. I really appreciate you coming and talking about the land rally. Do you have anything else scheduled like this for the summer?
So we're thinking through what that looks like. Right. But I think right now what we urged folks to do is at the rally and since then is to, reach out to our federal delegation. So Senator Mike Crapo, Representative Simpson, Senator Risch, and Fulcher, because there is a really good bill at Congress right now. Montana's Republican Ryan Zinke has a bill, Public Lands and Public Hands Act, yes, and it basically makes it illegal to transfer most of federal land to the states. There's a couple little like caveats in there that make, I feel like it's a pretty compromisable.
Ryan Zinke from Montana.
Yeah.
That's wild.
He's pushing this bill forward, and so far no one on our delegation has supported it. So that's kind of our big ask. And we know, especially Representative Simpson, he is one of the biggest public land champions that we're lucky to have in this country. And so, so we're really hoping our delegation kind of follows, Ryan's leadership and, not abandon their legacy of supporting public lands.
I dig that. Mm-hmm. Alexis, thank you for coming in.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate it. Let's get together again after the session. Let me know about events too, because I found out about the public lands thing after the fact. I'm like, oh, that sounds up. I don't get out much. I don't hang out on social media and I don't watch the news. So impossible for you to find out.
That doesn't happen again.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And I'd love to, help people understand too, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people like me moving here that do not understand this rich history. They don't understand what we have in the state. And frankly, like a lot of people, even from my neighborhood, it's like they don't really leave the neighborhood. You're like, man, maybe they, go out now and then, but they don't have connection to the land like people that have been living here forever do. So again, I just love the education piece. So let me know the next time and let's do this again.
Thanks for your time.